So let me ask you something. If Bitcoin, since the beginning of this cycle, was always destined to top in Q4 of the post-halving year, aka 2025, then would the price action displayed for the last 3 years not make complete sense? Since the bottom, would these pumps and retracements not make sense? To me, it completely checks out. If Bitcoin this cycle was always supposed to top at 180K in November of 2025, why would we get the altcoin season before that? It wouldn't make sense, correct? And would this consistent rise in Bitcoin dominance not also make sense? Why would we get a complete breakdown in dominance if Bitcoin has not yet topped? I'm saying all this because it seems like a lot of people quit not so long ago. And now all of a sudden, what was once some pretty strong bear market takes just a few weeks ago has become the dialogue of being sidelined for yet another run this cycle. That being said, on that run, and to bring it back to you, it seems like we are in the midst of starting the fourth run this cycle. The question, however, is this the final run or just yet another run? Because if this is another run where in the summer, then maybe August, we cool off again, there could be the chance to reload for the final run later this year. Remember, the macro is still not the best. But does that mean to just stay risk off until the macro gets better? No, of course not. If that were the case, you would pretty much miss this entire cycle. That being said, I do think the macro played a huge part in why we didn't probably see more gains in that big run we had in November last year and that run we had starting in 2023 up until March 2024. If we break all-time highs and Bitcoin goes into price discovery, one common trait that this would have, similar to the previous two, is that the macro yet again may not allow for a full-fledged altcoin mania. And so to me, what I'm kind of thinking is, okay, what if we pump yet again, have altcoins run, and then dump yet again? Where during that time and that dump, the Fed should fully pivot and allow for possibly the final run to end things off and the main altcoin season we wanted all along, which lines up with a top later this year. Price action could kind of be foreshadowing that. And if you've been watching the channel, you know that I'm very adamant on the fact that price action typically dictates what the narrative and such is going to be. The great thing about it though is that we don't even have to worry about this right now. Instead, we're just going to be focused on this run right now. And then if we get to those higher numbers of a 120 to 40k Bitcoin, we can discuss if that is the top of the cycle or just, again, something like a November 2.0, where we then get another run later. So we'll be discussing it live. I brought this topic up last video when Bitcoin was at 95k. So do make sure you're subscribed as we will continue to make update videos as things progress. So you don't want to miss that. But more specifically, we want to be talking about selling right now. Not literally right now, but the dialogue, how we're going to be selling when it's time. Because as you can imagine, and like we opened up with in this video, if this is not the final run for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is due a further run later this year, well, we're not going to get that crazy altcoin season until Bitcoin tops. In other words, you need to ask yourself, where once your altcoins get pretty up there during this run we're in right now, do you want to keep holding those altcoins, assuming it's going to be the final run of this cycle, or potentially selling those altcoins to then buy back later, allowing you to get a bigger bang for your buck? So let's talk a little bit more about that. So for example, here I have Chainlink, and I think this is going to really help put it into perspective. Over 2 years ago now, the final targets I gave for Link were well over all-time highs. Right now, all-time highs are at $53. I think Link will get beyond 53 by the end of this cycle. But like we discussed, if the end of the cycle is going to happen later this year, then Link won't breach those highs until later this year. But Link is still poised to make a run now, kind of akin to what it's done twice already. So like we talked about in that first run, Link went from $5 to $20, a 4x, right? But in that run, it wasn't the run. Bitcoin went from 25,000 to 70,000. It'd be kind of foolish to expect asymmetric upside during that time. Upside for sure, but no crazy god candles like it put in last cycle near the end. But you still could have made money during this time. Link then goes and gives back those gains from $20 to $8. This is when people were getting super bearish, saying it's over, there is no altcoin season, stuff like that. But yet again, with another run this cycle, Link goes from $8 to just over 30. So around about another 4x. But because Bitcoin did not complete its bigger move, which is becoming more obvious now, why would we expect Link to finish its move? That said, yet again, there was the chance to make money. Link goes from $30 to $10. On this latest dip, people come out yet again saying there is no altcoin season. We've been lied to. Coming for me saying, you said Link is going to all-time highs. But we on this channel stayed bullish. Now, hypothetically, if Link gets up to $40 this cycle, and this applies to any coin you're holding, if this is not the run yet again and just another run, then we could expect for Link to make quite the drawdown yet again. Where then during the final phase for a bullish, crazy Bitcoin, that is when Link goes on to make its crazy asymmetric upside, where it goes from let's say $15 up to 80 or something. Now you have two angles to go about this, right? And remember, this applies to any altcoin you're holding. If you have that type of conviction on an altcoin, like I do with Link and some other coins, where you don't want the stress of going in and out and you just want to hold, then maybe you just let Link do whatever it does now. If it's a run but not the run, so be it. If it's the run and does crazy upside, you'll sell. Either way, you'll be good. The other angle is, okay, I've been holding Link for a long time now. I had two chances, as indicated with these purple boxes here, to make some decent money. Not maybe the money that I wanted, not the crazy 10-20x that I wanted, but something for sure. If I get that chance again, do I maybe sell this time to get those gains, right? To not let those gains go, to actually cash in this time, where during that pullback, I can reevaluate and see that maybe is it worth putting something in again, anticipating a bigger run in Bitcoin where we get that crazy altcoin season after Bitcoin tops. Sui is another example of this, right? So I think Sui is the new layer 1 winner of this cycle. I think it gets well above $10 when it's all said and done, but it might not happen this time around. It might first get to $7, $8, top there, come back down, and then go on that insane run where yet again, you ask yourself, do I potentially sell, load back in, and then sell for those bigger gains? Tau, another example, I think the AI winner of this cycle. I think when it's all said and done, it will be the biggest new coin this cycle. That has been the conviction since the beginning. But if this is just gonna be another run where Tau gets up to 750, maybe 1,000 this time, but then comes back down to 3, 4, 500, do I consider selling in and out? Now here's the main reason I even bring something like this up. Bitcoin is getting to some pretty crazy numbers. If you held from this local top of 109,000 down to 70,000, subjectively, you may have felt a lot of conviction holding. You stayed bullish. It does seem like for the time being, it's worked out. Objectively though, you pushed your luck. This could have been it. There was a decent amount of reason to believe it was. I definitely didn't think it was the top. That was a very strong conviction I had. Everyone can attest to that. But still, right, objectively, I was pushing my luck. The easier trade at this time was to actually turn bearish. But this time around, it's going to be even crazier to stay bullish. This time, we're really going to be redlining it if you stay bullish. In the case of something like getting up to 130k Bitcoin and then dropping back to 90k and saying, oh yeah, no worries, I'm still bullish. We're getting to some pretty extreme numbers here. And so perhaps in either scenario, you want to sell anyway. Selling based on that idea of this is a run, but not the main run, where I can maybe shill out a few extra coins for the run, but also selling based on the idea that, hey, maybe it is crazy bag holding from 130k back down to 90k. So just a few things to consider. Obviously, we will be covering it on the channel when it's happening, when it's live. Make sure to follow me on Twitter as well. I always give my updates there. Right now, it's been nothing but, we're going up. Just bull posting for fun, but it'll get a lot more serious once we're at those higher numbers. Also, very quick, if you're interested, I do have an exclusive Discord group, a community where I give my live updates on what I think and helping them go through this minute by minute, essentially hand-holding on how to navigate what I think will be the biggest high pressure situation this cycle. So if you're nervous to do it alone and you need help of how to navigate things now and during these times, because for all we know, right, this could be the run as well, then make sure to join the group. There is a link in the description. There is also a premium version where you get direct one-on-one calls with me, asking questions about your portfolio, how much you have, how much you want, positioning you accordingly, stuff like that. Recently, we gave dupe at 5 million. That got up to 80 million, so a 20x on that. And you best believe there will be a lot more opportunity like that when we're making new highs, exactly like there was with the agent coins last time around. So again, check that out if you're interested. But here's maybe the craziest thing. Here I have the Bitcoin chart on the weekly, basically price action for the last decade. Now, the way we've sort of gone about this is thinking that these are 4-year cycles where we get a bottom and a top and then another bottom before the next cycle begins. So through that lens, this would be yet another cycle. Stick with me here, but I want you to throw that out the window. Instead, imagine all of this as one bigger macro cycle where along the way, we've been having higher highs and higher lows. Okay, well, why does that matter? Because if you know anything about Elliott wave theory, there are 5 waves. And so we had the bottom to the top of the 2017 bull market. Then we had the bottom again in 2018 to the top of the 2021 bull market to our bottom in 2022 to what would be the final 5th wave top of this decade-long cycle. Now, where this tops, I'm not sure. Let's call it 150K for the time being. One key attribute of the 5th wave, especially in a macro sense like this, is that there are a lot of fake outs. I think so far, we've seen some of the most brutal fake outs that Bitcoin's ever had. So again, this is a key attribute of a macro 5th wave, where things look like they're done, but then it makes a comeback. We've had it twice now, essentially. This one being crazier than the last one. I would not be surprised if we get yet another sharp fake out. Maybe 2 more. I'm not sure. I'm talking crazy swings downward before we just get out of it. Basically, way more volatile than anything we've seen so far. I don't think most people will be able to navigate this. So if you have the mindset of just holding, then maybe. Other than that, if you're trying to sell the top of this cycle and then buy back in at the lows of the next cycle, you probably won't be able to sell the top. But that actually gives a sense of relief, where before your whole thought process was, I'm going to sell the top. If you can admit to yourself right now, you won't be able to do that if something like this is on the cards. And all you focus on is making dollars, I think you'll have a better time than a lot of other people. So what I mean by that is, let's say right now, you have 10,000 and your goal is to get it to 100,000. Option 1, the obvious option, is to look for altcoins to do a 10x from today. That is going to be really difficult. The other option is to break it down, right? Because altcoins from this point on average probably do just a 2 to 3x, honestly. So instead, the mindset should become, I'm going to try and get a safe 3x maybe, sell that, turn the 10 into 30,000, and then maybe look to load up again for another simple clean 2 to 5x for another run later this year, where you then cash that out, and then we reevaluate again. So in other words, instead of looking for one clean 10x, which I think has been the demise for a lot of people this cycle, trying to buy and hold coins for each run where it starts to get up there but then folds over again. Instead, you break it down into smaller gains. Now, don't get me wrong, ultimately at the end, one thing I will stand by is this cycle will not end without a big altcoin season. So you could just buy and hold for that. But if you're someone who's really struggled to stomach this volatility, then it may be in your best bet to just get gains, realize those gains, and then seeing if it's worth allocating on a dip. Again, we'll cross that bridge when it's time. For now, let's just focus on this run. Bitcoin just got its highest weekly close. It is looking good, and then we will see what's what, where potentially we could be selling at these highs and then buying back in later. But if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you soon.